Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how I'm going to unfold this chap. Okay, so you submitted me the JPEGs and I thank you for that because these JPEGs contain the crucial information. So you can see in the perspective viewport, this is one JPEG that I extracted. So if I just go back here and I choose, for example, that JPEG, there you go, that's the perfect information. So I need to save this as a JPEG, this image, so that I can use it as a picture frame. And I need to also save this image as a JPEG because I'm going to use this shape here, this drawing, to position my different sections. Okay. You can also cut out this image and use it as a top view so that you can line up your different sections that you're going to sketch. Okay. I noticed that in this drawing, however, you have only 3 sections, and yet on this top view you've got 4 sections that are sketched up. Okay, so you can use this to just position your different sections from the top view to line them up if you want. I'm not doing it necessarily in my demonstration, but I'm going to show you from scratch how I proceed. Okay, so this is the general view, and once I've created my surface, so if I hide this quickly, there's my surface. I use the smash function to unfold this. Okay, so to find the smash function, it's under the fillet curve here. So it's the surface tools toolbar, and smash is with this icon here. Okay, so you've got 2 ways of unfolding your surface. One is called Unrolled Developable surface, and the other one is smash. Okay, and I'll explain what's the difference between the 2. All right, so you told me that the units are in centimeters, so I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to use Rhino 5 as a demonstration. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do File New, and I'm going to go and find Small Object, centimeters. Click Open. So everything's set at centimeters, as we can see at the bottom of the screen. So whether you're using a Mac or a Rhino or a Windows version, it doesn't matter. It's the same process. So now I'm going to place the different JPEGs. Okay, so I'm going to go on the top view, maximize it, and I'm going to type picture frame. So in Rhino V5 it's picture frame. In Rhino V6 it's just picture that you type in the command line, and I'm going to use this one, chap measuring. Sorry, and I'm just going to randomly place my JPEG like this. So obviously there's no scale. Okay, it doesn't show any units, so there's going to be a bit of guesstimate to be done. Okay, I'm going to press F7 to hide the grid temporarily. And I'm going to select my JPEG that I just positioned, and I'm going to go in the material icon under the properties tab. There's under basic settings, transparency, and I'm just going to pull it to the right, the little arrow, so that I can see a bit of the background. Okay, I can go back to the object, always in the properties tab, and all the way down in isocurve density, I can uncheck it so that I can remove the cross in my drawing when I select my object. Okay, so I have my JPEG that is positioned in top view. I'm not worried about the scale right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to sketch quickly the different sections. So I'm going to make sure that I'm in the layer section. I can double click here and call this sections. And I'm going to make it in yellow so that we can better see, like that. Okay, I'm going to lock temporarily my JPEG. So I select my image. And I'm just going to click on the padlock here just to lock the object like that. That means I cannot drag it and move it by mistake. All right, so now I'm going to focus on this part. I'm going to click on the control point curve. So just left click on this icon. And I'm just going to place my points. So I don't know how critical the precision is, but in my case, I'm going to follow quite well the shape. So that means I'm adding a lot of control points. And you know, when you add a lot of control points, when you have a quality surface, by having a lot of control points, and you'll see in the demonstration, well, sometimes it can yield good results, but sometimes when you have too many control points, it's not always ideal. And I'll show you a way to simplify your surface once you generated your chap surface. Okay, so I'm gonna do this very quickly, point by point, trying to be careful and follow the shape like that. So I'm trying to give a fairly good amount of distance from each point. I don't try to make them like, I don't try to make the, don't make it like this, okay? Avoid that at all costs. Try to give a good distance. So I know that some people love being super precise and meticulous, but there's also, it will impact the cleanliness of your shape. So don't add too many points if you don't need to, okay? So I'm gonna launch again, sorry, the control point, and I'm gonna do the same for that section here, trying to give some distance like that. Okay, not bad, like that. And it's a very interesting project because this is something that I get a lot of questions about, how to work out the surface. And you can use, like you mentioned, the loft function, or in my previous surfacing exercise I've demonstrated, I use the sweep one rail. So either one can work. It doesn't matter. I can actually show you the both of them. It's very similar. And you will experience a twisting effect if you don't pay attention to the direction of the arrows before you execute the loft or sweep one rail command, okay? I'll show you also how to line up all the sections properly. So right now I'm doing the tedious and boring part, but it's okay. Okay, I've been a bit too hasty, I find. Like this, and make sure that it's a closed curve, okay? So, sorry. Once you select your object, you can always go in the Properties tab under Object, and under Type here, it says closed curve. So make sure that it's a closed curve in all instances. Here, it's also a closed curve, so that's good. So I need to do this one now. So since it's a very organic shape and every individual is different, I don't think the precision level is super critical. You're working with a very flexible material, which is leather in this case. So I don't think the level of precision when you're drawing the sections is that critical. But nonetheless, I mean, it's good to it's a good habit to be as precise as you can be. So I need to do this relatively fast, like that. So I use Rhino a lot when I design and build my own mock-ups. I do aircraft cabins, and I need to build the fuselage. So once I've done what we call the cross sections, it's a bit similar to the sections that you're seeing here that I'm drawing, except they're more regular shapes. I use the function unfold to have my patterns in 2D so that I can cut them and make my bill of materials. So I have a very good idea, a very good approximation on how much material I need, how much it's going to cost me, etc., etc. So it's a great exercise, and it's very easy to work with. And so the difference between the Smash tool and the Unrolled Developable surface, the difference is that Unrolled Developable surface will only work if you have a regular surface. I mean, what I mean by that, it's a surface that curves in one direction, okay? A unidirectional curvature, okay? So if you take, for example, a cylinder, which is a very regular shape, it only turns in one direction, while you can use Unrolled Developable surface, all right? Anything that is easy to unroll, you use that function. However, if you go with more complex shapes, like in the case of your chaps, then if the unrolled developable surface won't work, because you work with double curvature. It will curve in one direction and it will curve in the other direction. And so that's why Smash exists. It's going to force the it's going to force the flattening of your surface onto the XY plane. It's going to be not as precise as Unrolled Developable Surface. So I just want to show you, it's under the fillet surface here. And so here's Unrolled Developable Surface and here's Smash, okay? And so I tried the first time with Unroll and it didn't work. And I'll do the demonstration right now for you as well. Now I'm going to switch to the front viewport. I'm going to press F7 to hide the grid temporarily. And I'm going to type again picture frame. Oops. Let's try again. Picture frame. There you go. And I'm going to use this time this JPEG, so chap measuring and patterning logic. And I'm just going to randomly position it like that. I'm going to do the same under properties, material icon. I'm just going to, under basic settings, I'm just going to make it a bit more transparent. Under object, where isocurve density is, I'm going to uncheck that. Perfect. I know that from this point to, so it says to A, I need to have 48 inches. So I'm going to do, first of all, I don't even know what's the circumference of my sections, okay? So if I go under my Analyze Direction and I extend my toolbar here, I've got here this icon called Length. This is going to give me the circumference, okay? Don't use the distance. Distance is from one point to another. It's going to give you a straight line distance, okay? But this one will give you for any curve, whether they're open or closed curves, the circumference or the length of that curve. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to select that curve and I'm going to press enter. And it says 48.75 centimeters. So I know that you mentioned that the circumference should be 37 centimeters. So I'm going to select all of that. Okay, so sorry, I went a bit too fast because I locked my JPEG. So make sure that you right click on the padlock to unlock it. Okay, so now I can select this. So I'm going to make sure that I select my JPEG along with my sections here. Okay, and I'm going to activate the gumball. So you just make sure that the gumball is activated. So make sure that it's in bold and you can see here the axis. Okay, and you can see I've got a red handle and a green handle when I'm in the XY plane like that. And I'm going to press Shift and I'm just going to click on the red anchor point of my gumball and I'm just going to do a 2D scale. Okay, and I'm just going to reduce it slightly. So now I'm going to deselect everything and I'm just going to select my curve again and I'm going to click on length and it says 44. Again, it's too big. So I'm just going to have to eyeball because I don't have any scale units on the drawing and I'm just going to do it like that. Okay, so it's a bit of trial and error. Select that curve, length. I'm getting closer, 38.5. So select everything, the JPEG along with the section, press Shift and click on the red anchor point and just scale it down a bit more. Oops, select this one here and click on length, 37.2, close enough, okay? So you can tweak even more to get exactly 37 if you want. I think you get the picture. So I'm pretty happy with the top view. I'm going to select everything to make sure that I don't select by mistake. And I'm just going to lock it temporarily by left clicking on the padlock once again. So that way I cannot select my sections by mistake. And I'm going to focus this time on this one. So I'm going to take this point here and I'm going to say I want this point here of my sketch to be positioned at the origin where the blue and yellow axis of my coordinate system are meeting. Okay, so I'm going to click on move. I'm going to select my JPEG, press enter. You can see that my cursor turned from an arrow to a crosshair. So it's asking here point to move from in the command line. So I'm going to specify the origin point on my JPEG, which is this point here. And now it says point to move to. So I'm just going to type 0. That means it's at 0, 0, 0 on the XYZ of my perspective view, essentially. Press enter, and there you have it. You can see that the drawing matches exactly at the point 0, 0 on my XYZ coordinate system in 3D. All right. Sorry again. So there you have it. So I positioned this one properly. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click again to unlock my sketch here. And I'm going to go back to my top view, and I'm going to show you something that you might not be aware of. I'm going to select this curve, and under the Analyze toolbar, if I just show you again where it is, it's under Analyze Direction. I'm just going to expand my toolbar. You can right click and then pull it out. So it's the Analyze toolbar. And you've got this icon here, it's called Area Centroid. So it's going to find the center of your shape. It can be an irregular shape. So it's just going to find the center by identifying it by a point. So I'm just going to click on that. And if I deselect my section, you can see a point here. So basically it's going to say, I don't want to say the center of gravity because it's not the center of gravity, but it's the center of that irregular shape. It identified by a point. So if I do it again, I select that curve and I click here, Area Centroid, and it's going to place the point there. I'm going to do the same here. Area Centroid, identified by a point, and I'm going to select this section and Area Centroid like that. All right. So now I need to scale this drawing. Unfortunately, it's not a very precise drawing. So it says here A is at 48 centimeters. A is at 40 centimeters from the point 0, which is at the center here of my XYZ coordinate system. So A, let's say that this line here represents A. So I can zoom in. No, actually, okay. I have a simpler way of doing this. I'm going to use points. So I'm going to use the single point. Okay, so I'm left click on this, and it says location of point object. I'm going to type in 0, press enter or right click, and it's going to place the first point here. So if I look at the chart, it says B is at 0. So essentially this point is B. If I look at the chart again, at 9.5 centimeters upwards, you should have the point E. So I'm going to select this point here. And you can use the gumball if you want, or you can use copy here. Either one, it's more or less the same. In the case of the gumball, I'm just going to press Alt and left click once on the green arrow of my gumball, like this. And you can see a little box appearing. And I can type the distance 9.5 like that. So by doing that, you can see the point is at 9.5. So essentially, the point E should be positioned there. All right. Now I need to have G. So what I noticed in your chart, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections, but on your top view, you've got 4 sections here. Okay. So fine, you know, it's no big deal. I'm just going to have to deal with the 4 sections that I sketched up. So I'm going to do the next point, B, E. So G should be 28.5. So if I use the copy tool, for example, I can demonstrate by using the copy function. I'm going to snap in point on my snapping toolbar. Make sure that O snap, as you can see here, is in bold. That means you should have this all available, all these options, and just check point. And I can select, if I do copy, I can select that point like that, press enter. And I can, for example, snap to that point, and you can see I have a copy now that is showing up and that is fixed to my cursor. And it says point to copy to. So the next point should be 28.5. So I'm going to type 28.5, right click, and now the distance is locked. And I'm just going to press Shift and left click and right click to come out of the function. So there's the 28.5 distance for G. The next one is F35. So this time I'm just going to use the gumball like before. I'm just going to left click on the green arrow and it says 35. So I type in 35, press enter, and there it is. And A should be at 48. So I'm going to, whoops, okay, my mistake. So what happened is that by doing the 35 distance, I moved the original point. So I'm just going to click undo quickly because I forgot to press the Alt key. So I'm going to select the point again, make sure the gumball is activated, and then I press Alt, and then I left click on the green arrow, and then I type 35, enter. Okay, so that's my F. And the last one is A, so it's 48. So I'm going to select this point like this, and I just press Alt, left click, and I type 48 like that. So if you want to verify the distances, there are two ways. Under the Analyze toolbar, which is always found under the Analyze direction icon, you've got here the distance. You make sure that you snap in point, and you can do from this point to that point, and it says 9.5, from that point to that point, 28.5, 9.5, 28.5, from that point to the third one, this is 35, so that works, and the last one from this point to that point, and I've got 48. Or you can use here in the linear dimension icon, I can pull my dimension toolbar, and I can do the same. Here I have the vertical dimension, and I click on that, and I do snap from this point to that point, and it's gonna give me the distances like this. So it's shown on my viewport like that. Okay, that makes it easier to read also. All right, so now it's a matter of scaling that drawing. So I know that, yeah, I'm gonna have to do a bit of guesstimate, but I'm gonna assume that if I place a point here, it should be about, the center should be about at this height approximately, if I look at that section here. So I'm going to do a scale 2D, so I can right click on this icon here. I'm going to select, oops, make sure that everything's deselected first, so I'm going to do it again. Right click on this icon for scale 2D, make sure that you select the sketch and the point that I identified as the center here, okay? And I'm going to right click, and now now it says origin point, so I'm going to click on the origin point here, which is at 0, 0, 0. I'm going to snap to this point here, which is the center of my section, okay? I hope it's not too confusing, but I can always redemonstrate. And then I snap to the 48 distance height by snapping to point like that, okay? And so now I scaled it properly. So let me redo it again for you, because I know it's a bit confusing. I'm just going to do Control Z. I'm just going to remove that point. So I had to do a bit of guesstimate, right? I'm trying to figure out the center of that section here, and that means it should be about here. So if I place a point, and let's say that I'm going to put it, I don't need to put it on this black axis. I can put it here also if I want to, okay? But I'm going to put it on the black axis anyways, because I want it to be lined up with this point at the origin, okay? But I know that it should be, the center point should be aligned up about at this height, okay? So something like that. So I'm going to select my JPEG, and I'm going to select that point that I placed, okay? And I'm just going to right click on scale to make a scale 2D like this. It says origin point. So I'm just going to find the point at 0, 0 like this. Then it says scale factor for the first element. So I'm going to find the centroid of that section, which is this point that I placed like that. And it says second reference point. And I'm just going to find the point at 48 centimeters like that and left click. And that's it. That's all I have to do. Simple. So now I've scaled my sections properly, okay? So I've got section A, F, G, I've got E and B. All right. So if I go back to my perspective view, I've got here, this one I know will be A. The other ones, I don't know which one is G, F, I don't know. I know that this one is B, okay, the one here, this is B. And I know that the last one here, I will assume that it's A, okay? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna select this curve, and I'm gonna make sure that I select also the point. You see, if I remove the gumball for temporarily, I'm gonna select this curve, and I'm gonna select the point, the centroid here, like that. Okay, and I'm gonna click on move. I'm gonna make sure that snap to point is checked, and I'm gonna grab this point here, and I'm gonna snap to that point like that. So I'm moving this point like that. I'm gonna do the same for this one. So I'm gonna say that this one, I don't know if it's G or F, whatever, or E. Let's say that it's G, okay? So I'm gonna select this curve with that point, and I'm gonna click on move, snap to that point, and I'm gonna move it on to G like this. All right. Then I'm gonna select this one along with the point. I'm gonna click on move, snap to the point, and I'm gonna find F, yeah, F like that. And I'm gonna do the same here, select that curve, select that point, click on move, grab that point, and snap to that point here, like that. Okay, so I've got my 37 centimeter circumference for my section here that is positioned at A. So I can hide temporarily my sections. So I select both JPEG, I can hide temporarily my JPEGs, okay? So I'm just gonna press Shift and left click, and click on the light bulb here just to hide them temporarily like this. So I've got 1, 2, 3 sections. However, I wanna bring back the other JPEG. I don't wanna go too fast, so I'm just gonna click on here on the light bulb to expand it. I'm gonna click on Show Selected Object, and I'm just gonna unhide and so left click and right click, unhide this JPEG, because there's something that that is important. It says top view align along chin. Okay, I need to make sure. Okay, so since you're the expert and I'm not, you have freedom, of course. Once I've positioned to the proper height, don't forget to move your sections so that they more or less make sense with the drawing here. I noticed that there's only 3 sections. There's 1 section missing. Here you've got 4 sections from the other JPEG that I used. So try to line them up. So I think what they're suggesting is at the extremum, they should more or less be very close to one another. So I'm gonna go back to the top view. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna click on project. This is important. You click on project, and I'm gonna snap in quad. So I check in quad, and I'm gonna make sure that the extremums, these the lowest point of my curves are more or less properly lined up. So I'm gonna select this curve, for example, press enter. I'm gonna press enter, that's it. And because I've got quad snap and make sure that everything else is unsnapped, I can move this quad here, and by pressing shift to maintain an orthogonal direction, okay, I'm just gonna move it and lock it along the x-axis, and I'm gonna press the tab key once, and I release the shift key. So now you see that I've locked along the x-axis, and I'm just gonna zoom in, and I'm gonna try and find the quad. If I bring my cursor and zoom in, I can bring the quad like this. So that quad of that curve is lined up with the quad of that curve. Okay, I'm gonna do it again. So I take this curve here. Okay, I'm gonna click on move. Make sure that project is checked. Okay, this is important. And I'm gonna find the quad. So the lowest point of my curve here, like this. I can press shift because here ortho is not activated. By pressing shift, I'm gonna lock it along the x direction, and I can press tab once, and you can see that the line turned white, and I released the shift key. That means by pressing tab, I locked along the x direction. And now I bring my cursor to line up with the quad, with the upper curve here. So that quad is lined up with this quad, and this quad is lined up with that quad, okay? So essentially that's what I'm doing, and I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to find the quad here. I'm going to press Shift, press Tab, release both keys, and then just find the quad with this curve. So that means all these quads are properly lined up. So that means it jives with the drawing from here, okay? So now I don't need that JPEG anymore. I can hide this. So I'm just going to click on the light bulb just to hide it. I can press F7 to hide the grid as well, and just want to focus on these curves. So all the quads are perfectly lined up. Of course, if you had another section, you could put it here. The more sections you have, the more precise it will be. You know, so I leave that to you, but you get the picture. So now, like you mentioned, you can use either the loft function that would work fine, or the sweep one rail, because if I unlock, no, actually, yeah, I could have used the sweep one rail, but for that I would need to create a path, so a straight line that goes from this point, oops, that goes, I need to make sure that I snap in point. I'm going to uncheck project, and I can snap to this point and to that point, like this, and press enter. Okay, I created a path. Okay, so I'm just going to hide the JPEG behind, like that. So you said loft. Okay, we can do that. So I go here under surface from 3 or 4 corner points. I'm going to expand the toolbar. So it's the surface creation toolbar. And I've got here loft. Left click, select section 1. So try and click in the same region. Okay, don't go randomly clicking. So if I click here, click here, click here, and click here. Okay, and press enter. So now, by doing this, I can see that all my arrows are going in the same direction. So they're all going they're going clockwise, sorry. And so I don't need to flip my arrows. If you happen to see one arrow going in this direction, then you're gonna get a twisting effect. So you just bring your cursor near the white arrow and just left click, and you're changing the direction. Now, you can also drag, but now it's not lined up, so it's going to create a twisting effect. So make sure, for example, if I want them to be lined up, you can snap in quad and find the quad like that, and there you have it. Okay, so make sure that everything looks good like this, and then you just right click. So when I do this, it creates a dense surface. If I switch to shaded mode, okay, it's creating a dense surface, and it could be fine, you know, if you are happy with that. If I select that surface and I click on the points on, so it's going to generate a lot of control points, okay? But it doesn't look too bad in this case. I think it can work pretty nicely, okay? But you can see the isoparms, they're quite dense, okay? So select this model, and you can go into Material Properties tab under Object, and you can click on isocurve density. You can uncheck it, and you can focus more on that shape. I'm not too crazy with the ripples that I see here. Okay, so I'm gonna click undo. It's too dense. There's something going on that I don't like too much. Okay, so I'm gonna show you a way to clean up now. I'm gonna do loft again. I can select 1, 2, 3, 4, enter. They're all lined up properly. They're all going clockwise, which is fine. And I just right click again and I go back to my menu. So if I leave it in normal, I'm going to leave it at normal in style. Okay, I don't think I want to explore the other options. Normal will yield the best result in my opinion. Now the difference between do not simplify, rebuild with X amount of control points or within a certain tolerance. If I use this with a very tight tolerance, that means you don't want your surface to deviate too much. It might happen that it's going to create a poly surface. So if I click OK on that, if I select my object, even though it's a very ugly surface, you can see that it creates a poly surface. And if I explode this, it's going to create multiple small surfaces. Okay. In this case, it really generated a very poor quality surface. I don't want to work with that. And I don't want to work with a poly surface. I want to work with a surface. Okay. So I'm going to go back to loft. I'm going to select section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4, enter, and press enter again. So this time I'm going to make sure that I just want to have a surface. So rebuild with 10 control points. What happens if I click on preview? It's going to create a surface. But with 10 control points, what happens, in this case, it's not a bad result, okay? In that case, it's not a bad result, but you can see that it cleaned up your surface significantly. However, in other instances, in other cases, when you use rebuild with, let's see what happens with 4 control points, and I click on preview. It simplifies even further your surface. So it makes it cleaner. However, by doing with less control points on your surface, you can see a clear deviation from your initial cross section. So if you increase the number of control points, let's say I want to increase the level of quality in terms of precision, I want it to follow these sections, I'm going to boost it up from 10 control points or 4 control points to 25 control points. And I click on preview. So it's going to create a surface, again, just a surface. And that's what I want. I want it to be a nice clean surface. It has more precision because I increased the number of control points, and it's going to follow the sections more. So I'm going to leave it to you to decide how many control points you want on that surface. Let's say I'm happy with that, okay? And now I'm ready to click OK. But you see the difference? In this case, if you click Do Not Simplify and click Preview, it can generate, I think it's generating a surface, but you see it's quite dense. It's not necessarily ideal, especially if I want to use the Unroll Developable surface or Smash function. When you see something with that much density, it can bug sometimes. So I'm just going to choose the rebuild with 25 control points and click OK. So now I end up with a nice surface that follows the sections quite nicely, okay? And if I select my surface, in the Properties tab object, it says Open Surface, that's good. And I can click on Points On, and I have a nice distribution of control points, okay? So that's a good sign. So if I go back to my object and I select it, and I go back into Properties under Object, and I've got IsoCurve Density, I can uncheck this, okay? And I'm just going to go under my Select All tool icon here, and I'm going to right click and expand my Select toolbar. I'm just going to say select all the curves, select all the points, select all the units or dimensions, and I want to hide this temporarily so that I can only focus on the surface now. Now that I have this surface, what you see here is a seam line. So the seam line will always be there, okay? It's not an isocurve. It's the fusion line that joins the surface from one end to the other end. You're always going to have that. Now, you can move that seam line if you want, okay? That seam line that you have here, if I go under the fillet surface, if I go under the fillet surface and expand my toolbar, Surface Tools, I've got here Adjust Closed Surface Seam. So I just left click and I can choose this surface seam. And if I find that it's in the way, I don't want it to be here, I can always move it, let's say, to this quad here, and I'm sending it to the back of my leg. So let's say this is my leg, so I'm sending it back that seam line like that, okay? So now I'm going to select that surface, and I'm going to try Unroll Developable Surface. And if I left click on this, it says unrolling doubly curved surfaces will produce inaccurate results. And if I try to right click on the zoom extent to find if there's any other geometries, the unrolled surface, I don't see anything. There's only my surface here of the leg. So that means the function didn't manage to create the developed surface, okay? It doesn't work because it's a double curvature. You can clearly see that it's a complex surface. It curves in that direction and it curves in that direction, okay? It's a double curvature. So to solve that problem, you just need to use the smash function. Left click on that. It says select surface. So you've got here between parentheses options. You have explode equals yes. So that explode equals yes, if you've got a bunch of different surfaces joined up together, meaning a poly surface, it's going to flatten all your surfaces in different patterns, but they're going to be separated when they're flattened, okay? And if you have a poly surface and you want to keep it as one shape, you just make sure that you click on explode equals no, okay? That's one way. You can label also to find which way is front or back, you know? So you can label equals yes. So let's say that I keep this option on, and I'm just going to leave it like that, and I just right click again, And if I zoom extend, so I click here, okay, it didn't work. Why didn't work? Let me see. Should work. Let me try smash again. Smash, enter, select curves on, no, it's not select. Let me try again. Select surface. There you go. Enter. Enter. There you go. Okay. So now that I've smashed this thing, you can see with the labels equals yes, it's going to tell you where are the different positions. Okay. So I moved my surface seam, you know, I don't know exactly where I put it, and I guess it was in the back. So this is, yeah, I think that's it. That's the orientation. So here, number 4 is the back. So here's your back, and they should join up like that. So 3 and 2 here, you can see it there, okay? So I can select that flatten model, use the gumball, and I'm just gonna drag it like this. And there you have it. You've got your flattened surface, okay, by using the smash function. And I've done it many times because I'm doing windscreens for cockpit windows for airplanes. And I build mockups for that. And I use a lot the smash function because I work in double curvature sometimes. And it works great, okay? So there you have it. And once you have this, you know, you can go to the top viewport. And you can go into print. And if you have access to a plotter, you need to connect your machine to your plotter. If I go to black and white so that we can see better. In my case, unfortunately, I'm doing this from my home computer, so I'm not connected to a plotter, but you set the dimension. So this is not too big, you know, it doesn't seem to be too big. And you just print it. Make sure that here, in this case, I'm scaled to fit. So make sure that you're 1-to-1. So clearly, that unrolled surface is way too big for my piece of paper. So I would have to work with something like a plotter size document, okay? And I don't have, unfortunately, no, I don't have anything that is like a plotter size document. But anyways, you get the picture, okay? Just make sure in the print that scale is 1-to-1. That's important, okay? So you can set it up to different scales if you're doing scale models. But in this case, you want it to be 1-to-1, and you just click print, and it's going to print the pattern. And from there, you just cut it and you stitch together, or you glue, or whatever you're making, and it's going to be like your 3D surface. Okay, so I hope it's clear enough, you know, and I hope you enjoyed that little demonstration. Thank you. Take care.